Hello and welcome to the history of Babylon 5. Today's episode we're going to be covering Marcus Cole. And here we go. Marcus Cole was born on the Arcea mining colony and raised far from Earth. He would spend most of his early life working for the family mining business on a succession of frontier colony worlds and mining colonies. During this time he became a superbly skilled pilot. One of these colonies was a Drazi colony at which Cole spent a whole year. Here, Cole saw the effects of mixing human and alien food when those less fortunate went through the waste. This bad food caused Banta flu, which was described as a sickness caused by consuming a fermented combination of human and alien food. During the Earth-Minbari War, he was drafted into Earth Force and assigned to Earth Force Intelligent Gathering Division. He was said to have a hatred of every minute of it. Though he never saw combat, he saw enough that even more than a decade later, Minbari ships, for all their beauty, still sent a chill down his spine. While he was away, the economic ramifications of the Minbari War had all but bankrupted the Cole Mining Company. And though Marcus had no love for the mining profession, his sense of family duty drove him to agree to help his father get the ailing company back on firmer financial ground. As his father's health began to fail, he found he was taking on more and more responsibility. What was supposed to have been months turned into years, and by that time his father had passed away. Marcus was already fully in charge of the company. 2 years later, his mother also passed, and with his brother off traveling and refusing to enter the family business, Marcus was alone, but determined to carry on his parents' legacy. His younger brother, William, with whom Marcus had rarely spoken to since his mother's funeral, was one of the first humans to join the Rangers. He had been visiting Minbar when he was recruited by Ambassador Sinclair in February 2259. In July of that year, he arrived at the Arcea colony on a Minbari cargo ship, much to his brother's surprise, and tried to convince Marcus to join and ask permission to use Arcea as a listening post. Marcus didn't believe his brother's stories about the shadows and was suspicious of what he saw as a Minbari cult, led by Sinclair, whom he had heard had gone native. William later sent Marcus a warning about the Shadow's attack plan for the colony. Marcus was not on the colony at the time, and returned just in time to see his brother die in the attack. Blaming himself for William's death, Marcus joined the Rangers to finish the work his brother had started. He traveled to Minbar and spent a year training with the Rangers. During that time, he became fluent in one of the Minbari languages. He was also trained in the use of the Din Bak, the Minbari fighting pike and traditional ranger weapon, by Durhan himself. The Rangers during that time were under the command of Jeffrey Sinclair. Marcus deeply respected Sinclair's abilities as a leader. Sinclair gave Marcus a Din Bak, intended for Catherine Sakai, as a sign of thanks for his help. By the end of 2259, Marcus had been assigned to Zargos 7, a small colony of the Drazi Freehold, where the Rangers had established an auxiliary training facility. Unfortunately, at the Shadow's detection, the Centauri Republic attempted to annex the planet from the Drazi. They established a blockade of the planet that prevented any ship from leaving. Marcus was able to slip through with the help of a Drazi pilot, who was killed in the effort. He set course for Babylon 5, pressing his small shuttle engines hard in order to arrive there as quickly as possible. He went so far to divert nearly all life support power to the engines, causing him to collapse as soon as he reached the station. Though he was brought into MedLab, he recovered by the time they reached there and slipped out without anyone seeing him. He sent a message to Delenn asking her to meet him down below. Delenn and her aide Lanier met him in the CD Tavern, where he confirmed his identity. Once they leave, they are accosted by some thugs, but Marcus makes short work of them. Marcus explained to Delenn, then to the station commander, Captain John Sheridan, and his second, Susan Ivanova, about the blockade. He explained that the Rangers had means to lift it, but it required a crew. Sheridan agreed to help. Marcus led Sheridan, Ivanova, Delenn, and Lanier to the White Star, the prototype vessel of the new Minbari warship. With Sheridan commanding the vessel, they soon arrived at Zargos 7. They destroyed the defensive satellites maintaining the blockade, though no Centauri ships were in orbit. A shadow vessel soon jumped in and attacked. They withdrew into hyperspace, but the enemy followed. They made for the jump gate in the dead Markhab system, where they opened a jump point within the gate. The resulting explosion destroyed the shadow vessel. Marcus's new assignment was Babylon 5. He began to coordinate a network of spies and informants relating news to the Shadows and their movements. He also served as a liaison for the command staff when they needed to take the White Star on a mission and Lanier was unavailable, since most of the crew does not speak English. One of the first such assignments was when Susan Ivanova, using the Great Machine on Epsilon 3, located traces of the first ones at Sigma 957. With the captain delayed by a Ministry of Peace official, Susan was tasked with seeking out the first ones and trying to recruit them into the Army of Light. She immediately took a prickly attitude to Marcus's cheerfulness, going so far as to tell him that he's not authorized to speak about her personal life. They successfully made contact with the walkers of Sigma 957, though at first they were not interested in helping. Susan was able to manipulate them, however, and they agreed to be there when the time came. Marcus befriended Dr. Stephen Franklin, working with him in Down Below. Marcus demonstrated a deepness of kindness to the lurkers, particularly an elderly man named Duncan, who was a particular friend. When Duncan disappeared suddenly, Marcus immediately suspected something was terribly wrong. Unfortunately, Security Chief Michael Garibaldi did not believe that there was enough evidence to warrant a search. Marcus then tricked Stephen into helping him, and they entered Duncan's quarters to find a tunnel through the wall leading into an abandoned part of Down Below. There, they were captured by a band of humans who had been bonded to strange aliens known as Vendrizi. Duncan was there and explained that the aliens made a symbolic relationship with their hosts. They asked Marcus and Stephen not to interfere, but the two men were unconvinced that the hosts were volunteers. Then Stephen was brought out of the cell they were being held in to operate on one of the hosts. After he was taken, Marcus managed to escape, recover his pike, and send an emergency call to the CNC before going in after Franklin. He managed to force a standoff where Duncan agreed to let his symbiont remove himself from him to prove their benevolence. Unfortunately, Duncan could not join again, which saddened him, since he felt being joined gave his life some purpose for the first time. He resolved to leave the station and try to find some of the wonders he remembered from when he was joined. Working with Marcus and his contacts, Garibaldi learned about a woman named Dr. Kirkish, who had evidence of the shadow vessel present on Mars several years earlier. Marcus arranged for her to be brought to the station in secret. The Shadows, however, learned of her arrival and attempted to have her murdered by agents of their own. Marcus defended her successfully and delivered her safely to the command crew. In addition to relating that a shadow vessel had been found on IPX on Mars, she explained that another such vessel was discovered on Ganymede recently and would soon be awakened. Sheridan announced that he and Delenn would take the White Star to the Sol system to destroy the ship while still dormant. Marcus was surprised when Sheridan elected to do it himself instead of assigning him to do it. He stayed behind and tried to assist Ivanova, who is upset and concerned by Sheridan's prospects. She told Marcus she blamed him for the situation, but then admitted that it was only because she felt powerless and had no one else to blame. Sheridan's mission was a success, and he and Delenn returned safely to the station. Marcus successfully managed to cheer up Susan by explaining where he fits in the scheme of things using the Ottoman Empire as a model, making her laugh. Unfortunately, minutes later, ISN announced that President Clark declared martial law for the entire Earth Alliance. Following the declaration, Clark dissolved the Earth Senate arresting half the senators and even opening fire on the building itself. He also ordered the bombings of civilian targets on Mars, when the government there refused to implement the martial law order. As a result, Proxima 3 and Orion 7 declared independence from the Earth Alliance. Babylon 5 follows suit. Marcus was pleased with the newly declared independence of the station, never having been a fan of the Earth Alliance anyways. Moments later, Delenn and the Minbari captain were kidnapped by renegade Night Watch agents loyal to Clark. Marcus blamed himself for not being there to stop it. The kidnappers sent out a ransom message to the command staff, killing one of the Minbaris. Enraged, Marcus went to Down Below to find a lead. He picked a fight in a bar, resulting in him knocking out everyone in the place. Lennier found him there, explaining that he was carrying out Delenn's wishes for the rebirth ceremony. Lennier confessed that he secretly loved Delenn. Marcus was not surprised, but Lennier explained that he did not consider it a romantic love but something nobler. They were interrupted when one of the Patreons awakened. Leaning on him again, Marcus was able to get some evidence that helped the crew locate and rescue the hostages. Several weeks later, a strange man claiming to be the legendary King Arthur came aboard the station. Marcus convinced the man to go to MedLab to be checked out by Dr. Franklin. He explained the situation to the command staff and proposed that the man be genuine. He pointed out that the Vorlons had been visiting Earth for centuries and were known to have taken at least one person and preserved him through the centuries. When Arthur escapes from MedLab, Marcus tracked him to Down Below, learning that he had run into Shakaar, and the two of them solved one crime and prevented another. Dr. Franklin, however, learned that the man was really David McIntyre, a former Earth officer who was a gunner on the EAS Prometheus, the ship that touched off the Earth-Minbari War. Marcus begged Dr. Franklin not to tell McIntyre this fact, explaining that it would be better for him to believe he was Arthur. Franklin told Arthur anyways, explaining who he was and that he had been carrying around the guilt about the entire war for years. They thought that before his breakdown, he might have been going to apologize to Delenn. Delenn met with him briefly, and he remembered his real identity. Shakaar then saw to it that McIntyre left to go work with the Narn Resistance. By September 2260, the Shadows began attacking openly. After convincing the Vorlons to engage a Shadow fleet to boost morale, Sheridan was able to unite most of the other races to stand against them, no longer needing secrecy in which to operate. Marcus Cole became part of the mission to move Babylon 4 back in time. While discussing with Sheridan in the war room, he was surprised to see Jeffrey Sinclair arrive unannounced. Delenn was not surprised to see him, however, and insisted Sheridan, Ivanova, and Cole come with her and Sinclair aboard the White Star. There, Cole learned of Delenn's plan, their destination of Sector 14, an area of space where Babylon 4 had disappeared and reappeared, and mission of bringing it to the past for use in the First Shadow War. He was fitted with a time stabilizer from Zathras to deal with the effects of the time rift. After the crew made it to 2254 and destroyed the shadow ships there to blow up the station, Cole accompanied Ivanova into the station to help get the equipment in place. While Ivanova located the access panel, Cole supposed it was the worst time to be discovered, so he jumped up to the ceiling to use Ivanova as a distraction in order to subdue two of the station guards. Ivanova finished simulating a hull breach to evacuate the area. Cole and Ivanova brought the equipment to the right place, witnessing Sheridan's time jumping during. Zathras had a plan to draw Sheridan back, but Cole was skeptical. It did work, though, as Sheridan appeared. After the chaos of jumping forward in time prematurely, and the Babylon 4 crew evacuating, the station is finally pulled fully into the time rift, and everyone gathers in CNC. There, Cole confronted Sinclair about keeping the whole truth from them. He correctly guessed that the station would require a navigator to take it back into the distant past, and whoever it is would not be returning. Sinclair and Delenn confirm his suspicion. Cole then offered to be the one to do it, but Sinclair revealed that he would be going. Cole and the others reluctantly conceded, realizing Sinclair's destiny was ultimately to literally become the Minbari religious figure Valen. With Sinclair in the distant past, the Rangers needed a new leader. Delenn was chosen as the natural successor, and an installation ceremony was prepared aboard Babylon 5. Just prior to the ceremony, Lennier came to Marcus and warned that Delenn's life was in danger from Neroon, a Minbari warrior who believed Delenn was out to become ruler of their people, despite Lennier's caution that he could not fight the skilled warrior directly. Marcus chose to engage Neroon in a fierce one-on-one battle, a battle where he invoked the Minbari ritual called Din Shah. Despite losing, he earned Neroon's respect for his willingness to give his life for Delenn, while he, a Minbari, had been fully prepared to kill one of his own. Neroon let Marcus live and did not disrupt the ceremony. After it was over, Neroon visited Marcus, and they parted in friendship. Near the end of 2260, Sheridan and Delenn managed to figure out a pattern in the Shadow's attacks and planned a counterattack. The attack required a single ship sent in as a scout to relay when the Shadows arrived to the fleet waiting in hyperspace. Marcus and Ivanova were assigned to the task aboard the White Star. They waited for the better part of a day, taking various shifts. During this time, Marcus shared some more insights on his training, though he could not bring himself to share his feelings with her openly. Eventually, they detected a Shadow scout vessel and engaged it. Though they destroyed it, the White Star's engines were temporarily disabled, just as a massive fleet of Shadow ships arrived. The White Star called in the fleet and joined in the Battle of Sector 83. Though the Alliance suffered heavy losses, they were able to claim a victory. At the end of December, Sheridan took the White Star to Zahadum and disappeared. The Shadows immediately halted their attacks, causing the Alliance to start to unravel. Rumors quickly came in that Sheridan, after going to the surface of the planet, caused the White Star to crash into the Shadow's largest city, detonating a pair of thermonuclear bombs on impact. In the beginning of 2261, Michael Garibaldi, on patrol in a Star Fury, the day Sheridan went to Zahadum, disappeared mysteriously along with the ship. Shakar decided to try and track him down. Figuring that Shakar would need some help, Marcus decided to go after Shakar. He found him in a seedy bar on a remote planet, where he had to save Shakar during a bar brawl. After escaping the place, Marcus explained to Shakar how he had followed him. Marcus personally interrogated Shakar's contact and obtained some information regarding Garibaldi. Shakar was grateful, but insisted on going in alone, following his own leads. He asked Marcus to return to Babylon 5 and use the station's resources to pursue alternative leads. Marcus reluctantly complied. Shakar was captured by the Centauri not long afterwards. Marcus and Ivanova took part in the devastating battle at Sector 300 during the Earth Alliance Civil War. Ivanova's command was shattered, and she was also mortally wounded. Marcus left his post with no other thought than she should live, and broke into Franklin's files, where he found a report on an alien tech that could siphon life energy from one person into another. He hooked himself up into the machine and passed all of his life energy to Susan, so that she might live. He whispered that he loved her, and she regained consciousness as he lost consciousness. This is how they were found. The next chapter is non-canon, from one of the novels. With no hope of revival, the Minbari enclosed his body in a cryotube, where he would remain in cryonic suspension for the next 3 centuries. In 2560, an expedition to the Rim discovered the ruins of an alien civilization that had produced the energy transfer device, and at last found the information that would enable the Alliance doctors to revive Marcus Cole. Marcus, awakening to a world he no longer knew, surrounded by monuments to friends long dead, embarked on a scheme that would reunite him with his lost love, Susan Ivanova. Using the fortune that had been kept in a trust for him since his body's arrival on Minbar, Marcus first purchased a small jump-capable flyer and traveled to the Neural Archives on Sirius 9. With the help of a local Drazi, Farn, he broke in and stole a copy of the data crystal on which a neural imprint of Ivanova had been stored. Next, he traveled to a small medical research station in the Bikari system, where a Dr. Quinjana was hiding from the Earth Alliance authorities for his illegal work in the human genome. After providing the doctor with the neural image and genetic sample in the form of a single hair found on his ranger uniform after he emerged from the cryo, Marcus paid Dr. Quinjari a considerable sum to grow a clone to full maturity, with the neural imprint taken up until the point she was injured at the Battle of Sector 300. He then traveled to Mars, where he would spend the next 32 years in cryosleep at the Everdream Enterprises, where he met Dr. Garibaldi, a sixth-generation descendant of Michael Garibaldi, and a dead ringer for his destined ancestor. In 2593, he awakens again. Marcus was greeted by Garibaldi, now the company's vice president, and a few weeks from retirement. Returning to Bikari space, Marcus collected a mature and imprinted Susan from Kunjala's son and took her to Krian 3. After she awakened, Marcus explained that they had been shot down by raiders and crashed on this planet while en route to Babylon 5 to celebrate the end of the war. But with the ship and its distress beacon destroyed, they were stranded with no way of contacting others. Susan agreed that the best thing to do was to find food and shelter and settle in for the duration. The ultimate fate of the two is unknown. Thank you for watching the history of Babylon 5. Special thanks to the Babylon Project for all information you heard today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.